So far on the channel, we've talked about the easy way to make trees, we've talked about the cheap way to make trees, but this week we're gonna be talking about the way that I prefer to make trees. Let's go. Welcome back to another week of the Storycraft Society. My name is Garmin, and this, of course, is the Storycraft Society. This is going to be another week of us talking about how to make trees for our tabletop role-playing games. And honestly, one of the main reasons for that is because I think trees are very useful. They block line of sight. They take a set from looking pretty barren to very exciting. And how many adventures are you going to be running where the PCs are running through woods and fighting monsters off in the forest? A lot. So I think this is a really useful piece of terrain, and it's worth all of the discussion. But this week, we're specifically going to be talking about the way that I prefer to make trees. Now, there are certainly cheaper ways, there are certainly easier ways to do it, but my preferred method absolutely comes in the fact that I don't think trees are that fun to make. They're really useful to have on the table, but they're not that fun. So what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be taking a pre-bought box of Woodland Scenics trees. Now bear with me for a second. I know that the video is supposed to be how to craft them. We're not gonna be making the trees per se, but we're gonna be enhancing the trees and making them better for tabletop use. But I did pre-buy the trees. I don't enjoy making trees, so it's easier to buy a pre-built pack and then just enhance them, fix them up, make them fit my game and my table better. The trees I'm going to be using in this episode are a pack of deciduous trees from Woodland Scenics, and specifically in this video, I'm going to be using the fall colors one, and solely because I already have summer and spring trees that I've already built, not to mention the pine trees and all that stuff. I think this is not the pack of trees you should start with. I think you should start with a green tree because that's going to be what you use more often than not, but for me, since I already have a decent tree collection, I figured this would be a fun little addition. So without any more talking, let's jump into how I make these things a lot better for my table than they are right when they come out of the box. So the first thing that we need to address when we're talking about these trees and getting them tabletop ready is their durability. So these trees, when they come out of the box, are just like, my guess is they took a spray tack and sprayed them over the armature of the tree and then just put clump foliage on top of it. It's definitely not super friendly to being picked up and set down and picked up and set down. We need to address the durability of the trees first and foremost. I'm gonna use this video as an opportunity to test 3 products out. So the first one I'm gonna do is Minwax polyurethane spray. It's a satin finish, but what I'm gonna do is really try to saturate the foam with that, see if that hardens up. The next is going to be a matte Mod Podge spray. We're going to see if that works. Obviously, I use matte Mod Podge a lot, and it would be really nice if this spray ends up working out as well. And the final one is this Elmer's glue spray. I honestly have no idea what this is. I found it in the craft section at Walmart, and I was like, well, I mean, I know that Elmer's glue works when you soak it into the foam, so maybe this spray will work too. So those are the 3 that I'm going to be testing. And now here's a little note on get creative with what you have. I needed a tray to put these trees on, so I looked at how they fit together, and they actually seat down into these little bases. So then what I did was I went out and got a broken skateboard deck. Skateboarding is honestly my first love, so I've just got a ton of them lying around everywhere. I took it and drilled holes in it to fit the size of the little trees, and then they just drop down in with a little bit of poster tack, and it holds them really well. And now I've got a cool little tray to dry my trees on, and it cost me nothing. Get smart with what you have, because I'm sure that there's stuff lying around that you could use for crafting, a little bit of creativity, and you'll get great use out of something that could have just been trash. The next thing is I went outside and sprayed them. Now here's the unfortunate part. Once I sprayed them, it's gonna take a long time for them to dry, at least a couple of hours, and I don't wanna waste time. So what we're gonna do is put a pin in that. We're gonna let those dry, and then we're gonna move on to building the bases. As soon as I applied these, I noticed something right away, and that's that both the Minwax and the Mod Podge went on, and it went on just immediately clear. The Elmer's went on, and it left kind of that Elmer's glue white, undried glue look all over the tree. Now what's interesting about that is that seems like a negative, but assuming that it dries clear, it actually made it really nice to know where I had sprayed and where I hadn't. Also, fun little side note, I had some black paint on my gloves, and when I pushed down on this guy like that, it took the black paint right off with the Mod Podge. So let's see what these look like when they're dry. The bases that come included in this set are not very good looking, and honestly, I'm not 100% sure why they include them, but for our usage right now, they will make one thing easier, and that will allow us to glue these bases onto a piece of heavyweight chipboard, and then we don't have to worry about drilling a hole or supporting the tree in any way other than just setting them down into this base. I made the chipboard bases. Really simple, just cut circles out of heavyweight chipboard. So I just cut that out, sanded down the edges, made these little discs, and then I can start super gluing the included bases down onto the chipboard. The next thing that I'm gonna do is take that super glue and go around the outside edge of the base to blend it down into the heavyweight chipboard. I'm just gonna use super glue again, but then I'm gonna take baking soda and sprinkle it over the top. And the nice thing about this, it just absolutely cures immediately. It dries rock hard and it gets this really interesting dirt texture, and it just fits so well with this particular stage. So normally when I do bases, I could do a sand and PVA mixture to make my dirt texture. I could also use actual dirt and PVA glue to make up a paste. There's just a ton of different options that you can do, but this time I'm gonna be trying out something new. So my better half got this Soilworks Winter Ground. It's made by Scale 75, and she is the half of our duo that likes painting miniatures, and she got this to base the miniatures that she's painted. So don't tell her that I'm using this, but I'm gonna try this stuff out, see how it works, and we're gonna put it onto our bases and see what's what. That whole ending was terrible. So after you shake this stuff up real good, we're gonna break it open here. See, it's like a pre-mixed paste, and if this stuff works, it's a heck of a lot easier than having to mix it up yourself. It's thinner than I would expect it to be, or like it to be, I suppose. It looks pretty good right out of the gate. Another thing that I'm also realizing as I do it with this stuff is I wasted a step by doing the super glue baking soda, because if I used this stuff, I could have just used it. Live and you learn, I guess. You live and you learn. All right, there we go. All we can do is wait till this dries and we'll see what it looks like. So one thing that I'll say about the Soilworks product once it dried is that I'm not sure that it's a product that I'm gonna be using more in the future. That comes for a couple of reasons. One, it's a really nice product. The end result looks great, but I'm not sure it's worth spending the extra money when you could just do backyard dirt and PVA glue, or sand and PVA glue and then Mod Podge it and paint it. It does save you the step that you don't have to paint it. That's nice. It's already pre-made, so you just scoop it out and throw it on. I guess if I was in a hurry, I could certainly use it there, but it seems to be more suited for doing miniature bases where you just want to put it on and not have to worry about painting it later. But it is what it is. It was a fun product to mess with. At least I know what it does, and I can use it in the future if I want. And once that dried, it was then time to move on to flocking the bases. So I'm gonna do two different flocks. I'm gonna do a dark brown flock mixed with a brown flock, and that's gonna kind of simulate dirt that's all pushed up around the base of the tree. Honestly, the only reason I'm doing this is because I wanna mask that ugly looking base down below. And then the next type of flock I'm gonna do is actually my Storycraft blend, which is a 1-to-1-to-1 of Woodland Scenics Earth Blend, burnt grass, and dry grass. You mix all those together and it makes this interesting dried grass look with a little bit of brown and a little bit of green in there. It's my favorite way to make kind of dead, aging grass. I didn't want to use a bright green considering that these are fall trees, but then I basically did the dark brown flock up around the base and then did patches, or even sometimes I covered the entire base in the Storycraft blend to get a more dead grass look. But so then now, once we have our bases dry, we can move back to our sprayed trees and see what the result of that experiment was. All right, so here we are 12 hours later, and here are my final thoughts for the 3 different sprays that we used to harden up our trees. So let's talk about each one, what their strengths and weaknesses are, and then I will tell you which one I think is the best. So the Elmer's Craft Bond we're gonna go with first. I think that its strength is that it is absolutely the strongest of the 3. In one spray, it really hardened up and it feels really rock solid. The thing that sucks about it, now I don't know if the glue didn't cure or if I did something wrong with it, but it's got this like white film over the whole thing, and it doesn't look super terrible with the yellow, but I think if I did that on the red or the brown, it would just absolutely look horrendous. So for that reason, I think this one is out. We're gonna skip over to the Minwax polyurethane. So the Minwax polyurethane I like because it absolutely did not leave any hint of residue. You know, it doesn't look like I hardly sprayed it at all. Its negative is that it doesn't seem to have hardened the tree up very much. I would think I would need more than 1 coat, maybe 3 or 4 coats to make the Minwax work out. On to my final one, and probably you could have guessed my favorite and the winner, is the matte Mod Podge spray. This definitely hardened up the most of these 2. It's not quite as hard as the Craft Bond. It also has the clearness of the Minwax that you can't really notice that it was sprayed at all. So I think the Mod Podge is the best of the 3 because, like I said, spraying it, it's clear, you can't tell that I sprayed it, but also it did get nice and sturdy. I will say I'm probably going to double coat these. So I only have 1 coat on it right now. I'm gonna go with another spray just to really lock this in, and that's how I'm gonna do all my trees. So let's move on and get these things assembled up and ready for glamour shots. So trees are definitely one of those products that it never feels like wasted time, because for years and years and years, I will be using the trees that I made years ago. They just always make it to the table and they always make a set look good. So I don't ever feel like it's me blowing it, or some products, it's just you make something and you go, cool, I made it, now what? Trees never feel that way for me. But the funny thing is, now that I have a billion trees from the pine trees video, the cheap trees video, and now this, I have no idea where I'm gonna store all my trees. I guess that's the unfortunate part of being a crafter, but that's it for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed watching this. Hopefully you go out and pick up yourself a pack of these trees. If you enjoyed this content, definitely leave me a like down below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. That goes a long way to helping the channel out. Leave me a comment below and let me know, what is your favorite way to make trees? Is it one of the 3 ways that I've shown so far on the channel, or is it another way that I don't know of? Honestly, I would love to hear it because, I mean, heck, I've already made 3 tree videos. Why not make a 4th? All that said, that's the end of this video. Until next week, get out there, get crafting, and I'll be seeing you.